Wow. It is the end. I mean, really, it is the end of an era. I mean, it really does boggle my mind that after almost a decade of these movies, it's finally come to an end. I really don't know what to do with myself, gosh. Besides celebrate! Woohoo! No. But on a serious note, it seems like ever since I've been hired at the movie theater, I've been having to build up Harry Potter movies. It just feels like every season that comes and goes has to have a Harry Potter film in it. It just feels as though there's going to be a giant vacuum that's going to try and fill this Harry Potter void. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. First, let's talk about this movie, which I gotta say, I really liked. I've mentioned over my past 2 reviews of the last 2 Harry Potter movies, which was The Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 1, that these movies are just feeling like a ton of build-up to the climax. And I actually didn't give those movies too good of a rating, simply because it was just nothing but build-up. But damn, that build-up worked perfect for this. I mean, this movie had no build-up. The entire movie essentially was just the climax. And I'll be damned if that climax wasn't great. And again, I have to tell you guys, I am not a Harry Potter fan, but I have been forced to watch these movies ever since the second film. So I do know the story, I do know what's going on with the plot, I can somewhat follow it. And while there are certain elements of the story I don't completely understand, I still really liked this. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to sum up the plot for this movie, because it essentially leaves off right where Part 1 ended. You got Harry and his friends trying to go out and destroy the Horcruxes so they can defeat Voldemort. They have to try and sneak back into Hogwarts, and all of Hogwarts has to unite to defeat the Death Eaters. Now, like I mentioned before, there were some aspects of this story that I did not understand, and I'll probably never understand. I have several friends who are very big Harry Potter fans, and they did explain to me these plot holes, because apparently they were thoroughly explained in the book. Now, it may just be me, but I personally cannot stand it when movies do this. I think I've mentioned this before, but it bears mentioning again. If you're going to make a movie, the movie should be able to stand by itself as a film. You shouldn't have to read a novel, or a comic book, or a magazine, or any other entertainment medium in order to understand a movie. Now, I understand these films are geared towards Harry Potter fans, who have obviously read the books. But there are certainly people who are only seeing the movies. And I can almost guarantee they're as confused as I am with some of these plot points. There are some actions taken by some of the characters in this movie that I just did not understand until it was explained to me by a Harry Potter fan. However, these plot holes were few and far between in the movie, and for the most part, it was fairly easy to understand what was going on, because the plot is pretty straightforward. Good guys versus bad, we gotta defend the good guys, the bad guys are attacking, they gotta fight. It's as simple as that. And seeing as the last 2 movies were nothing but build-up, if this climax wasn't good, it would have been a major letdown. And if nothing else, these 3 lead actors have finally come into their own. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, they were great in this. They weren't just good, they were great. Now, there is one thing I haven't really commented on all summer, but it bears mentioning. The 3D effects for this film weren't that good. I mean, they were almost a side note to the movie. You could pretty much tell the 3D in this movie was thrown in during post-production. And what I mean is, any good 3D nowadays in Hollywood is always made during production of the movie. The entire movie is filmed in 3D. But more often than not nowadays, the 3D is simply thrown in after shooting has stopped and the editing has begun. There really is no need to spend money on this in 3D, because the movie by itself is very good. There's no reason to see it in 3D. But sadly, this movie can only be seen in 3D in certain theaters, so it appears you're going to have to pay that extra money anyway. So, final rating. I have to admit, This movie was almost the perfect cap on a good series. I wouldn't call this a great series, but I would call it good. A very good, solid movie series. And this was a great way to put a cap on that good series. This series has really become a part of people's lives over the last decade. There are children who have grown up watching these movies, and it has been an integral part of their daily life. A few decades ago, kids were growing up with Star Wars. Shortly after that, they were growing up with Indiana Jones. This is what kids were growing up with over the last decade. And I can think of no better way to end the series than with this film. I was nothing but pleased with it, and while it wasn't perfect, I really did enjoy it. I'm going to give Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 3.5 stars. Certainly a very, very solid movie, and if you are a Harry Potter fan, it is definitely a must-see. But I must stress again, if you can skip the 3D, go ahead and do that. There is no reason to watch this in 3D. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this review, I think there's going to be a vacuum that occurs with Harry Potter now gone. There's going to be a lot of different films trying to grab at this section of moviegoers. There is a huge market for this pre-teen fantasy crowd. And not just pre-teens. Teenagers and even full adults are enjoying these movies. And it'll be interesting to see what fantasy films come out that'll try to fill that void. It's already happened in recent years. There have been movies like Percy Jackson, or The Vampire's Assistant, even to a certain extent, The Golden Compass, that have tried to play to the Harry Potter crowd, hoping to bring in a little bit more money. And now that this series is over, it'll be really interesting to see what films try to fill that void. However, until another series fills this void, I think it's going to be temporarily filled by Twilight. Oh, God, I shudder at the thought. So, take care.